Now, occasionally I get asked in the comments to cover a certain subject. Every so often somebody says, oh, will you just give us your views on this and give us your views on that? And I'm quite happy to do that as long as I have a valid opinion on it and enough knowledge not to just waffle and risk saying the wrong things and end up being cancelled and in the YouTube gulag. But the other day, one of my subscribers, a lot of you'll know, Dotty Dolly 52, slightly dotty but very beautiful, and I just love reading the comments because they just go into such detail and it's great. And she said, will you give us your opinions on the need to occasionally say no? And this really struck a big chord with me, and I will tell you about it. To cut a long story as short as possible, my dad was, as I've said before, was an extraordinarily beautiful man. He was a headmaster, he was a lay reader of the church, and he was also the church treasurer. And he was one of those, he did lots of things in the community, small town we lived in, and he was well loved, and he did whatever he could. Whenever somebody asked him to do something, if he could do it, he did it. And it eventually, ultimately became his downfall, in my opinion. Now, he was a teacher for many years and he loved it. But eventually one of the headmasters at a local school retired, and he was more or less bullied into becoming the headmaster of that school. And I remember him saying to me a year or two after that he hated it because all he wanted to do was teach, and he felt that he was now some kind of a manager, and he hated it and affected him and it made him ill. And at one point he tried to take his own life when there was only the two of us in the house together. I was about 15 and I was off school because I had had my appendix out, and he never really recovered from that. And then eventually they sold the house and they moved to a beautiful cottage on the moors up near us here. 17th century cottage, those walls that you can sit inside, and a floor where you put something down, a ball down, and it would roll across. It was ancient and it was beautiful, and he lived there for 2 years, and he used to take his watercolours out and paint, and people were going to the fields and they called him the artist of Edgeworth, and he was there for 2 years and he died of a heart attack. And I was quite angry about this, but I inherited that trait, and my mum used to hate it. I had a gardening and landscaping business, and I could not say no to people, and people take advantage, and people did take advantage. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do it a bit cheaper? Can you do this? I'd finish your job and they'd say, before you go, can you just do this? Can you just do that? And I found it so difficult to say no. So I knew, but the thing is, when you do this, it's not only the just saying no, it's afterwards. I used to give prices for jobs and I'd get bullied down and I'd think, oh yeah, go on, do it for that price, and I'd walk away and think, why did I do that? Because I'm not going to make any money. It's just stupid. And my mum used to say to me, you've got to learn to say no. And I used to say to her, I know that, but it's in me. I can't do it. If it's in my DNA, if it's in my character, it's very difficult not to. And she used to say, you are just like your father. But the trouble with that was probably the greatest compliment you could give me. But this is what happened, and I couldn't say no. And you've got to learn to say no for your own sanity, your own peace of mind. I've only recently found myself in a position where I can actually feel comfortable in saying no. Now, I've always worked with people, but lately, being retired is great. It means that I don't avoid people, but my natural lifestyle means that I don't have as much interaction with people as a lot of other people. So saying no now is actually, it doesn't even seem to be an option, because it doesn't really come into my life, and I feel so much more comfortable with it. I think that people who find it difficult to say no consider it a weakness, but I don't think it's a weakness. I think it's probably just that a lot of people do like to please. They do like to get that buzz by doing something nice for someone else, and I don't see that as a weakness at all. So saying no, learning to say no, or not being able to say no, isn't a weakness. But learning to say no is self-preservation. Finding it difficult to say no isn't a weakness, but it can put you under all sorts of stress, because not everybody is nice. People will take advantage, even if they don't know they're taking advantage, because this is human nature. So learning to say no is important. I think we should learn to say no as early as we possibly can in our lives, because the people who can't say no are the people who bear all the responsibility, whereas the people who pass on that responsibility, the people who you are doing things for, the people who you can't say no to, are the people who are walking around completely free of responsibility, like they've been blown through by peace and warm air, while you walk around like you've been in the ring with Mike Tyson. Of course, you'd very seldom find yourself saying no to your closest friends, but you've got to remember that your closest friends are the people who consider your feelings, your emotions and your stress. They aren't the kind of people who would take advantage and ask you to do things. And if they do, then you have to question whether they are your greatest friends. But you don't, and you actually enjoy doing things for your friends. I do. I've only got one real close friend, and we are close, and we do all sorts of things for each other. Great things. If she wants to go away for a few days, I'll go move in and dog sit. And it's natural, and it's a nice feeling to be able to do it, because you know that you're giving the other person the opportunity to go away and do something without the responsibility, and the knowledge that everything is being looked after and they can concentrate on having a good time. I think you have to learn to be firm, even with families. In fact, familial ties can make things even more awkward, because families will put on each other and ask each other to do things with no malice aforethought at all. It's just that you're part of the family, so you're expected to do things. But there will always be somebody in the family who is the one who's doing, and there will always be somebody who's doing the asking. There will always be a Cinderella, and there will always be a stepsister, or a stepbrother, or a stepfather, or a stepmother, or a step uncle, or a step anything. But if they're family and if they love you, they're not going to get over offended if you politely refuse. You don't have to be blunt about it, but you politely refuse. And I have found in my life that if you say no often enough, then it becomes the norm and people stop asking you. I spend a lot of Christmases, the last few, probably every other one I've spent with my friend, but before that, for many years, when I lived on the boat, I spent it on my own, and I have done for years. And my family used to ask, are you doing this? Are you coming here at Christmas? Are you coming here? Oh, come here at Christmas. Oh, you must come here. Do this, do that. But I didn't want to. I'd been ill, for one thing, but I just didn't want to. I don't like crowds. I don't like people. And so I politely said no. Now they don't ask, but they don't love me any less, and I don't love them any less. But I politely said no. And it was for my own peace of mind. It was for my own stress levels. You've got to learn to say no. There's nothing wrong with saying no. You are made to feel as though saying no is you're being cruel, you're being a bully. Why do you say no? Why won't you do this? Why won't you do that? But this is probably an accusation made by people who would be quite happy to say no and have no regrets saying no. Be that person. Say no. But only really when you don't want to do something. By all means, say yes if it's something you want to do. But if it's something you know is going to put you under pressure, put you in a compromising position, something you really don't want to do, the problem is you say no and it doesn't end there, because then afterwards you're thinking at the back of your mind, why did I say that? Why can't I say no? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? And you're the only person who's suffering in that relationship. The other person probably doesn't even know that you're suffering and you're stressed out because you wanted to say no, and would probably never have asked if they'd known they'd put you into that position. So learn to say no, and learn to say no early before saying yes becomes a habit with you and an expectation with others. Of course we want to say yes, of course we do, but you will know immediately when you said the wrong thing. You will know that feeling in your gut when you think, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't said that, I wish I hadn't committed myself. You will know. That feeling you get when you walk away and you just think, why did I do that? Why did I say that? And it isn't just as simple as being disappointed, feeling bad that you put yourself into a compromising position, something you didn't want to do. You felt like having a bit of a chill, but now all your plans have gone out of the window because you said yes and you wish you'd said no. It's not as easy as that, because it compounds like it did with my father and like it did with me when I worked on the marina. It was great, but I worked with the public. There were probably 150 boats. Many of those were residential, so there were people were there all the time. Nigel, will you do this? Will you do that? Will you do this? Will you do that? And it was just building up and building up and building up. And in the end, I got cancer and I had to finish work. I was at retirement age, but I wasn't going to retire. But I did finish work, and it was the best thing I ever did, because that position, the chances of being put into that position became almost nil. And I've lived now since I've retired for the last 5 years. And it's been great. It's been bliss. I don't have to say no. And it's not that I want to say no. It's just that I don't want to be put into the position where I know that my gut is wanting to tell me to say yes. But I also know that by saying yes, I'm going to put myself into a position where I'm going to go home and sit down and think, why did I do that? And right up to the moment when you're doing what you agreed to do, you're thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Can I not just learn to say no occasionally? Because nobody gets hurt, nobody dies, nobody gets offended. But the only person who is put under undue stress is you. You've got to learn to say no occasionally. Say yes as many times as you want if it's something you want to do, if it's something that brings you pleasure. Doing things for other people and bringing you pleasure. Say yes, 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 all the time. But learn to say no, because the world will take advantage of you. That is one thing that is written in stone. The world will always take advantage of the generous natured. Rulers, not many rulers were beneficent people who thought only of the subjects. There's always a trait of selfishness, of passing on the job to the person down the line so that you can go about your business and no worries, no regrets. Someone else is bearing that responsibility. Learn to say no. Learn to say no. It's not being selfish, it's self-preservation, and it's also making sure that you are around to say yes when you feel like saying yes is the right thing to do. What a beautiful day. We shall see you all on the flip. Peace and love.